Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Shaun of the Dead. I'm going to see I'm a little bit more chipper today than I was before. You saw me now about 10 or 15 minutes after waking up. I had time to take a leak, brush my teeth, and I immediately started filming out at the campsite. It was a primitive campsite. It was a little ring area with no tree coverage above us, no canopy, and then trees around us, and then the trail, and then an opening into the lake. Well, with the tree coverage around the sides of us, we didn't get any breeze. And with the no canopy above us, we had no shade. Once I moved some stuff around, I ended up having my tarp up, but we were like vampires trying to hide from the sun and kept moving our chairs around to different areas to try to get away from it. And it was just so unbelievably hot. We didn't fish, we didn't start a fire, we didn't do anything. It was just so freaking hot. I spent most of my time taking my water, and the water is like, you ever take water in a garden hose and you've been spraying stuff out in the summertime, and then you turn on the water and you put the garden hose on you, I hit you and it's hot. That's about how hot our drinking water was. Maybe just a hair cooler. And so I was pouring water that hot on my bandana, opening it up to catch the breeze in it, just to kind of cool it down a sec, and I was draping it over my head, wrapping it around my neck, just to try to cool myself down. It was just so unbelievably hot. And I can't really take the heat anyway. And usually my friends will call me a polar bear, or they'll ask me where the bodies are at, or what am I trying to do, hang meat in here, because I have my air conditioner just jamming all the time. Because I don't like the hot. I can handle the cold all day long, but I can't do the heat. So we went out there, and I was just absolutely miserable. So what I did was I sat around and I was burning up, and we ended up humping back, and it was a mile and 1.1 or 1.3 miles from where you parked to the primitive campsite where we were at, and we were at the closest one. And there was nobody else out there primitive camping. They're like, wow, you guys are crazy. It's like, no, we're just out here camping. Oh, no, it was hot. It was much more hot than I expected. By the time I humped down the pathway down the trail, I couldn't see anything. I had my headlamp on, couldn't see any markers. My buddy walked the wrong way trying to find me because he thought I passed it. Then he turned around and walked the other way. Actually, he walked just like 100 yards towards me. Couldn't find me. Then he walked the other way, probably a half mile. Couldn't find me. Then he walked all the way back. Finally found me. And then he helped me carry the rest of my stuff in. Because I carried my bug out bag, which is heavy. I had my LBV with 2 quarts of water on my waist. And I happened to have my gun holster on, which was underneath, which was hooked to my pants. So my backpack was pushing on my LBV, which was pushing on the gun holster, which was pushing my pants down. So my pants kept trying to fall down, and so I had a backpack and a plastic trash bag with some freeze-dried food in it in one hand, and a 2.5-gallon bottle of water in the other. So I'm carrying my bug-out bag and all this extra heavy gear. So by the time I got half a mile down this path, I was like, oh dude, I'm about to freaking fall over. I was completely soaked with sweat. Caught a hold of my buddy. He helped the rest of the stuff back with me. I humped my backpack back in the bag. He put the backpack on and he carried the water. So we went back. He had said he made 4 trips. He got there at 3 o'clock that day. I didn't get there until almost 8. So here I am, pumping in the dark. Well, at least he already knew what was going on. He could see everything because it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon when he got there. So he made 4 trips. So he already walked 8 miles, something like that. It was a little over a mile one way. So he already walked over 8 miles. Probably closer to 9 because he walked about a mile to try to find me. So he probably walked at least 9 miles that day on the low end. So the next day, it's like he got up, he went on a kayak training class, and I was like, I'm sleeping, So I just stayed in my hammock, crashed out, and woke up, did the video you guys saw, and then he come back, and it was hot, and I was just like, and I moved my stuff around, I changed my hooch to a different area, everything was cool. And so he was like, hell, I'm going to go on this kayak tour of the lake. And I was like, oh, that sounds like kind of fun. Do you have to take the kayaking class to do this? And he's like, I think so. And I was like, okay, cool. So I call them up because I have my phone, and I had like 4 out of 5 bars and 4G out there, which was really weird. So I called the main office. I was like, hey, I want to sign up for the kayaking class. And she's like, well, you have to pay for it now. And I was like, okay, well, my wallet's in the car, so I got to hump back to the car. So I hump back, and I get a little over halfway back, and I realize I forgot my keys. And I was like, oh. So my buddy was like, I'm staying here. I was like, all right. So I humped all the way back. So by the time I get where we went to and back, I already walked over a mile. And then I grabbed my keys, I poured some water on my do-rag, wrapped that around my neck, take a big old chug of water, and then I come walking back out. So I already hiked 2 miles at this point by the time I get to my vehicle. And, you know, it's noonish, a little after. I'm burning up. So I'm like, ugh. And I'm sitting there in a car, the air hit me, drive up to the main office, buy some water out of the vending machine, you know, sign up for the kayak thing. And I'm talking to this cute little chick that works behind the counter. And so I was like, hey, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you know, how do you have to, you know, taking the class to kayak, or kind of noob just jump in and try it and just wing it? Because I do that a lot. I'm like, hey, I'll just wing it. So she's like, no, you can do that. I was like, okay, cool. So what did I do? I went ahead and she started talking to us about renting a canoe. And I was like, I've never been on a canoe, but it sounds good to me. Sounds better than walking a mile in the hot sun, you know. So she talked us into getting a canoe for 24 hours. Because I figured we can canoe across the lake to our site, then we can canoe back for our kayaking thing, do our kayaking adventure, and then we can canoe back across the lake, and then the next day we can kayak or canoe back with all of our gear, because I can park my car by the canoe area, and ta-da, I don't have to hump that stuff a mile out. And so we did that. So we canoe over. That was my first time in a canoe. So we were doing pretty good. And he had already taken the kayak class, so he kind of had an idea what to do as far as paddling. So I'm paddling, we're turning, learning how to stop and steer and all that. And we get there. And as you saw what all the trees and stuff looks like, it was crazy. Lots of trees everywhere. We traversed that, got in, and we ate lunch, and I was burning up. I talked to my dad on the phone. I was like, man, I'm burning up, Pop. I'm thinking about just going up there, getting something cold to drink, sitting in the ranger's office and in the bench inside, and just trying to cool down a little bit before kayaking thing, because we're going to do this excursion around the lake. And he's like, that's probably a good idea. So I get my boy up. It's like, hey, let's go. He's like, okay. So we get up, get in the canoe, paddle a mile across the river. So this is the second. I've already humped 2 miles. Now this is the second mile, because it's about a mile across from the canoe rental to our primitive campsite. So we've already went 1 mile over. Now we're going 1 mile back. So now I've walked 2 miles and canoed 2 miles. And the canoeing way easier. The breeze on the water come up, and by the time I got there, I wasn't sweating anymore. It cooled me down being on the water, and with the motion of the kayak, I mean with the canoe, with the breeze going, it helped cool me down. So I had cooled down substantially. And I was like, okay, cool. So we get there, we cool down in the office, drink some water, drink some soda, and then we end up going back to kayaking, and we kayaked for like an hour and something. Well, we kayaked for about 3 miles. And I was like, dude. And so kayaking, unlike canoeing, it's this. And you're just doing this. And then to back up or to turn or to stop, you're doing stuff. And so I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be sore as crap because I've been doing this, and I've been doing this. So we do this 3-mile thing around the lake. And but at one point, I got like 300 yards behind like the pack, and there was like one person here, me, another lady here, another lady farther back, and then the lady that was actually married to her and her husband that were leaders of the tour. She was the farthest one back, just making sure everyone was safe, and she was our back door, and her husband was the lead guy that was actually taking us around. So we're going around, and I was like, man, I want to catch up with everybody else. I can't hear what he's saying when he stops to point stuff out. There was eagles and trees. There was a bald eagle. I didn't get a very good look at it because by the time I got up there, it was far off. So I finally got used to it, and they said you can wiggle your rump but you can't wiggle your upper body. If you shift your upper body, the weight will flip the kayak over. So I was nervous at first. So they said, you can wiggle your seat though. I was like, okay. So I get up there, and finally I get used to what I'm supposed to do, and I'm like, and next thing you know, I caught up to the group. By the time I catch the group, I'm spent, as I caught up like a 300-yard deficit. And now I'm trying to keep up with them, and I'm wore out. I'm whooped. So everybody else is up there, and I'm still trying to keep up with them. On the way back, I was just like, and I'd sit there and just let it kind of coast. Do a few course corrections, let it coast. I was just like, oh, this is a beating. So finally we get back, and I'm like, dude, I gotta cool down. So I go hit the head. Right next to the restroom is another vending machine area, so I get a thing of ice cold water. I sit in the vehicle with some air AC. I drink me a 20-ounce bottle of water, cooled down. We got back on the canoe, and in the pitch dark, I put my extra headlamp on him, and I have my cap clip on my cap, and I turned my cap around backwards because the only thing I could see was his back and the inside of the canoe. I couldn't see anything outside of there, so I flipped it around backwards for any boaters they could see from behind us. And he had two headlamps on, one on his head and one on his cap. So he had those out there shining his lights, and we traversed that mile in the dark, and then the next morning we broke camp, put all of our gear in there, and we went ahead and canoed out and another mile first thing in the morning. So on the water was an absolute blast. It's a no-wake lake. If you go out there with an engine vehicle to go on the lake with, it can only be idle speed only. You cannot kick up any kind of wake whatsoever. If you catch bass, you have to throw them back. They want people to go out there and have fun fishing, so it's a fun bass fishing area. And if it's catfish or bluegill or anything else, you can catch and keep and eat whatever you want, but bass you have to throw back. So it's a pretty nice little area. The people were friendly. The kayaking was a lot of fun. The canoeing was fun. So I had a lot of good times, except for the whole being overheated part and not being able to sleep because it was so hot. So I didn't do anything. So if I would have showed you the right videos of me, it would have been me with a bandana like this. That would have been all you would have saw for like hours. Is me pouring water in a bandana and doing this, and I would have going. That's all you would have saw. So I didn't shoot any other video because I did absolutely nothing. So again, this is Shaun of the Dead, telling you my experiences on this little primitive camp out, and I'll go over the logistics of the gear that I did and didn't use and what it did and didn't do. And as always, don't forget, subscribe.